啊，怎么说呢？我完全没有想到，在收到他的电话，仅仅过了6星期以后，他就去世了，真的是非常意外。但是我们看到，在去年的1月份，在郭飞雄得到他妻子罹患癌症这个消息之后，悲痛欲绝，多次与中共沟通，希望中共能允许他来美照顾他病重的妻子，陪他走完最后的人生旅程。可是中共在机场强行阻止并绑架了他。接下来持续的沟通，中共一直不允许他来，一直到11月，郭飞雄先生向中共的总理李克强写了一封公开信，要求他干预，允许他来美。结果中共就在12月5号绑架了他。在他被绑架之后啊，差不多就是5个星期，他的妻子就突然去世了。啊，可见中共的邪恶到了什么样的程度。中共也一直密切关注的张青嫂子的这个病情。当他了解到这个状况以后，仅仅不到3天，就派中共的恶奴上门通知他的家人说，郭飞雄因为涉嫌煽动颠覆国家政权被拘留。看看中共有多么邪恶！中共早已成为人类的公敌，他为了维护他的专制政权，已经到了不择手段的程度。有句话说莫斯科不相信眼泪，那么现在也有一句话说北京它是不孕血的，它是视血如命的，视人命如草芥的。所以在这种情况下，我想改革已死，革命当行。我说的革命可能就是说，有的人会说哦，革命拿枪拿刀去啊，不仅仅如此。在我们的历史上有很多成功的例子，这个合纵连横是革命，百合之术也是革命。所以在现在这样一个时代，在全球对中共邪恶暴政的认识已经从根本上发生改变的时候，我想我们必须运用我们各种各样的可能来影响世界各国，站在正义一边，站在中国人民一边，向邪恶中共说不，要让全世界认识到，中共政权不代表中国人民，中共暴政绑架了中国，挟持了政府，利用执政之便来奴役中国人民。我们必须面对这样一个事实，而且中共绝不只是在迫害中国人民，他的邪恶的魔爪已经伸向世界，他对人类文化、社会文明、普世价值都构成了最严重的威胁。如果我们今天不在中共沦陷区展开行动，那么将来有一天必定会就在我们的家门口不得不与中共宣战。所以中共对中国人民的迫害啊，我们已经是有目共睹，对吧？他的维稳经费已经超过军费，也就是说中国人民一直是在中共心里是头号敌人。所以我们不要一厢情愿把自己带进中共所说的那个我里边啊，说西方亡我之心不死，那个我不包括你，我们必须认清这一点。所以呼吁各界正义善良、爱好和平、尊重人权的朋友们，我们一起携手努力，消灭共产专制暴政，建立民主中国。谢谢各位朋友。
好。
那我们现在请参加朋友先往前，然后我们先来呼喊口号，好不好 ？OK。
好，对我觉得咱朋友们集中一下，我们在这个中共奥运北京奥运即将开幕之前，我们要呼吁全世界抵制奥运，不做帮凶啊！所以咱们一起来对中共说不。 请大家集中下。
然后我们站两排。
转一下试试，再转试试，再转回来试试。是不是已经熟？
我们要喊口号。
好。
OK。然后光晨喊第一句，然后大家跟着喊。OK。
好了。
再集中一点，再集中一点，然后前面这一排还可以再带一个人，要不然这样整个都分散，我们就2个人，然后线人 ，OK， 然后再过来一点，再过来一点，要不然都看不到大使馆，再过来一点，这个就等一下啊。再往左边走一点，然后现在光头好像在我旁边。
不能。
这还可以来一个人呢。
好，大家咱们一起向中共说不啊！悼念张青，自由飞雄。
悼念张青，自由飞雄。
邪恶中共，停止迫害。
邪恶中共，停止迫害。
抵制奥运，不做帮凶。
抵制奥运，不做帮凶。
推翻暴政，自由中国。
推翻暴政，自由中国。
No Beijing Olympics.
No Beijing Olympics.
Free 郭飞雄。
Free 郭飞雄。
悼念张青，自由飞雄。
悼念张青，自由飞雄。
邪恶中共，停止迫害。
邪恶中共，停止迫害。
抵制奥运，不做帮凶。
抵制奥运，不做帮凶。
推翻暴政，民主中国。
推翻暴政，民主中国。
No Beijing Olympics.
No Beijing Olympics.
Free 郭飞雄。
Free 郭飞雄。
No Beijing Olympics.
No Beijing Olympics.
Free 郭飞雄。
Free 郭飞雄。
All right, thanks everyone. As you make your way back into the crowd, I want to make an announcement that if you are parked illegally over here, that they will start ticketing in the next 5 minutes. So if you need, I parked on the other side of Connecticut on Van Ness. There was 2-hour parking. So that is a final warning. Yaya, do you mind saying that in Chinese?
谢谢大家，左边有热水，还有暖包，因为我们还需要一点时间，所以大家尽量保持温度，然后那边有热水哈。那这边的区域是不能停车的，大家要先把自己的车开走。那接下来我们欢迎可乐。
All right, next up, we have the president and founder of the Uyghur American Association, Kazakh Alte.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I think everybody knows this is one of the coldest days past few years, and just imagine in the cells, in the jails, in China, in the concentration camps, and people are suffering, and we know we have Wong home today. It's extremely difficult to imagine what people are going through in China right now. So first of all, I want to thank Pastor Bob Fu for inviting us and organizing this event. Unfortunately, he was not able to hear, but I think his determination, commitment against Chinese Communist Party, it's an inspiration for all of us. As Uyghur, I am from East Turkestan, and you guys know that millions of Uyghurs are in the concentration camp at this point, suffering. Who do you see here? You might see me as a Uyghur, and you might see her as a Han Chinese. But what I see is, I see a mother. I see a mother who passed away. And I can relate the women that are getting gang raped in the concentration camps under Chinese Communist Party. I can relate those Uyghur women getting tortured and killed and organ harvested in the concentration camps under Chinese Communist Party. Who do you see there? You see a Han Chinese? What I see is a husband. The husband wanted to visit wife in China and get arrested by Chinese Communist Party. Uyghur people are living this every single day for past 70 years. And this needs to stop. Something that we have learned in past few years, Chinese Communist Party is not only against Uyghurs, it's not only against Tibetans, Mongolians. Chinese Communist Party is against the mothers like her, fathers like him, and humans like us. Chinese Communist Party, it's against humanity. So together, all of us, without saying, you're Han, I'm Uyghur, he's Tibet, we all have to speak up for each other. We need to come together, unite our forces and the power against Chinese Communist Party. And thank you so much for inviting us here. And I want you to remember, millions of Uyghurs every single day is going through maybe millions of times heavier or worse human rights abuses in China. And we have to work together against Chinese Communist Party. You guys have a good day. Thank you. Thank you, Logan. I know it's very cold.
Thank you. Next up, we have Sean Lin, who is the Executive Director of the Global Alliance Against Communist Disinformation and Propaganda, and also with the Falun Dafa Association of DC.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sean Lin. Thank you very much for China A organizing this very, very important event. And I'm glad to be here, but also very sad to be here because the passed away of Zhang Qing. And I had the opportunity to actually interview Guo Feixiong as early as in 2006. At the time, I was hosting the program in NTD television. So we had a chance to interview Guo Feixiong. And he was very courageous to lead many efforts for civil rights movements inside China. And in 2006, he went to Guangdong and he supported the farmers' very, very courageous efforts to protect their rights in Taishichun in Guangdong province. And he was also one of the lawyers in Dissident lawyer firms, and which together with a famous human rights lawyer, Gao Zhishen. And his experience in southern China definitely tell us even the most mild, most peaceful civil rights movement in China was not allowed it. And he was harassed, he was beaten, he was tortured when he was detained, and then later on he was sentenced for many years. At the time when I interviewed him, he was still hope that China can have some legal reform. He was still dreaming that China can gradually move towards a very peaceful election system, you know, by setting a good example in the village. But now, I think 16 years has passed by. It's a very, very clear story, example, vivid example to tell the whole world that even the nature of the Communist Party never changed. You can't expect them to reform, and they always treat Chinese people like cattle. They don't care about the people's life in China. That's their evil nature. They never changed. And you can see the recent example in the lockdown, in the hard lockdown in Xi'an. How many people starved because the Chinese government announced the hard lockdown overnight? No preparation for food and many essential supplies for people. A city of more than 13 million people were locked down in 24 hours. How can the government make such a decision? because they don't care about people's life. To them, in the name of a pandemic control, it's like they treating Chinese people as cattle. You know, when you have a pandemic, if you have an outbreak, you know, poultry, in the cattle, for the breeder, for the owner, what they care about is just how much money I'm gonna lose this time. To the Chinese government, same. They don't care how many people will starve to death, maybe, or even how many people will have their other disease condition deteriorated during this hard lockdown, and how many people may not get medical treatments. They don't care about this. They only care about their power, their grip of power. And we're very sad that Zhang Feisheng cannot have a last chance to see his wife. A similar tragedy happened a lot in China, and Chinese government has waged total wars against all religions, not only Tibetans, Uyghurs, Falun Gongs, underground Christians. So many groups were persecuted all over in China. And now, many Chinese people, even they don't have any dissident opinions against the Chinese government, they were facing a chance they may lose their life. In the past, when the Chinese government tell the world in the Human Rights Commission say, the most fundamental right for Chinese people is the right of survival. Many people think this is kind of a joke. Chinese government redefine the term of human rights. They think they were just deceiving the world. But now I think the world seeing more clearly, this is true. How can you survive under the Communist Party's dictatorship, under this evil regime? How do you survive? You never know when the power of the Communist Party's, you know, hard tactics, hard crackdown policy will land on your head, right? So I think every Chinese people need to see it clearly. Communist Party does not represent China, does not represent people. You belong to them once you are a citizen in the Communist China, and they can take your organs, they can kill you in any way they want. And so I think the example of Zhang Feisheng and also his lovely wife passed away, this is clearly a testimony to the whole world. The Chinese Communist Party is an evil regime against human nature, and all the world need to voice out, and all the people with conscience need to gather together, bring our courage and strength together to call for the disintegration of the Communist Party and bring hope for all Chinese people. Thank you.
Hi, so next up we have Karen Huberman. Oh, the co-chair of the Uyghur Crisis Response Team for the Adas Israel Congregation.
So you can see I'm not used to doing this. I had to write it out. But thank you for inviting me to join you. A little over a year ago, the Social Action Committee of Adas Israel Congregation held, oh, I should take this off. Sorry. A little over a year ago, the Social Action Committee of Adas Israel Congregation held an educational forum on the Uyghur genocide. About 20 people attended. Out of that meeting, the Uyghur Crisis Response Team was formed, and as Logan said, I am one of the co-chairs. For many of us at that meeting, learning about the human rights abuses being perpetrated by the Chinese government against the Uyghurs hit a deep chord. And as we have learned, it is not just the Uyghurs. There are too many similarities to experiences we have suffered throughout our history for us to turn our heads and ignore what is going on. From the imprisonment in concentration camps to the inability to practice and hand down one's religion and follow one's customs, to the forced separation of families, to medical torture, to the expulsion from one's land, I could go on. Genocide is genocide. And if there is one lesson we have learned
from our own experience, silence is not an option. Silence is what allows genocide to happen and to continue. Silence not only allows the human rights abuses to continue, it gives permission to others, individuals, companies, organizations, other governments to be complicit. We as Jews know this from our own experiences. Today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. While we remember the Nazi perpetrators, we remember as well those who looked away and in their silence were complicit. Among other things, we remember how, and no matter how much things change, they remain the same. We remember how in 1936, a time when international censure of the Nazis might have meant something, the International Olympic Committee decided to hold the Olympics in Berlin. But we also know that there is another option. So today we remember the victims, and we also remember those who bravely took action, risking their own life and that of their families to save the lives of others, often the lives of strangers, often the lives of Jews. I do not want to suggest that what we, meaning our small Uyghur crisis rescue team is doing is in any way equivalent to the incredible bravery of those individuals. Yet by their example, they show us the way. They show us the importance of action. It is their example that the members of the Addis Israel Uyghur Crisis Response Team have taken to heart. We have no choice but to speak out and do our best to raise awareness as to what is going on in China. Among the things we've done is participated in a Uyghur Seder that Jewish World Watch held. We have hosted a member of the Uyghur community to share her story with our congregation. We participate in the Uyghur Wellness Initiative. We hold monthly protests at the embassy, the Chinese embassy, on the fourth Thursday of the month. And so that means that, yes, today I'll be back here at 6 p.m. For our own protest, smaller than this, I believe. Because unlike in 1936, we must protest these genocide Olympics. In addition, we spearheaded a letter to the Biden administration from over 200 rabbis and community letters from over 22 states, urging the administration to do more and to ensure that at least some will ignore the Olympics and boycott them. We're holding a webinar during that period. But we know we must do more. Jewish morning prayers begin with a series of very short blessings. And to be honest, I don't pray every day or every morning, and so I got these from an opinion piece that Deborah Lipstadt, the historian and President Biden's nominee to be the U.S. Special Envoy to combat anti-Semitism, wrote for a different context. One of them thanks God for freeing the captive. Another thanks God for opening the eyes of the blind. A third thanks God for allowing us to stand tall and straight. We know that the captives will be free when the eyes of the world are open to the reality of the genocide taking place in China. And then we will all stand tall and straight. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, for coming. Next up, we have Judge Li Jianfang, who is a former Chinese judge, prisoner of conscience, refugee, and now a Canadian citizen.
我是来自加拿大价值守护者联盟和团结工会的李建峰。我今天不能用英语跟大家说，为什么？入监以后，被共产党抓去以后，持续了11天的60万副的4把电警棍的投弹，在我入监以后的第3个月被诊断出来脑萎缩，所以说我语言受了那个 这么样的一个障碍。那么在中共，在中国这块地方，不仅仅像我这样子的人会受到中共的残酷迫害，任何一个为追求民主、自由、公平、正义的人们，无一例外的都受到了中共的残酷的迫害。纵然现在有一些人还没感受到，但是在你争取自己合法权益的过程当中，你将毫无例外地受到来自中共的迫害。我们今天来到这里，就是为了纪念这么一个人，他就是张青女士以及郭飞雄先生。那么郭飞雄先生一个人权律师，也仅仅在法律的合法的范围内，为民众做了一些事情，就受到了这么样的残酷迫害。更有甚者，在张青女士弥留之际，居然以煽动颠覆国家政权罪把她逮捕了。那么张青女士在悲愤当中离开了我们。不仅仅是张青女士，在我身上也是发生了这样的类似的事情。前年，我的母亲、我的父亲相继离世，那么就是在弥留之际，也就是想见我最后一面，但是中共对我的这个要求回去的答复给予拒绝。那么，中共在它的法律以及法规当中，明确规定了公民具有合法的这个权利。中共的宪法把人权写在纸上，中共的刑法规定了任何犯罪嫌疑人都有这个探视权，甚至监狱法也规定了会见权。但是这些法律正和其他的法律一样，没有一件得到好好的落实。他们完全就是一块遮羞布，是一个大淫妇身上的一块华丽的遮羞布。这块遮羞布上布满了他的精血和淫水。我们知道，我们的这个世界是由我们的上帝掌控的。我们的主告诉我们：“唯愿公义如滔滔江河。”我们相信，我们的一切为了公平和正义的一切努力，是得到上帝的赏识的。我们的主也说过，要把这个千年古蛇要投进无底深坑。他们所做的罪将接受最后的审判，这个审判的结果就是死。所以我们在此呼吁，释放郭飞雄，抵制北京奥运。谢谢。
Next up speaking, we have Wong, who's a dissident and democracy activist.
感谢大家那么多朋友到这个地方来。今天呢，大家可以看到，这个华盛顿 DC 中国大使馆门口呢，气温非常的低，很寒冷。那么这么寒冷的天气呢，就让我呢想起呢，在中国发生一件事，不知道大家还有没有印象？也就是前几年啊，这个北京曾经有过一个在冰天雪地的时候呢，驱赶这个低端人口。也就是习近平的这个爪牙，北京市市委书记蔡奇，他曾经在北京，在非常寒冷的气候下，也就像我们今天这样的气候下，他突然在夜间把大量的所谓低端人口驱赶到马路上，
比现在还
也就是连夜把你们全部赶走。那么这一种情况，它的出现，它意味着什么呢？意味着是中共不断的压榨中国人民的底线。它也就是对你老百姓的这种残酷的这种迫害，在光天化日之下，在冰天雪地里面，在连夜把你们赶到这个 寒冷的天气中去。在这么冷的天气中，我们就应该感受到共产党的残酷。那么，这是我举的一个例子，就是在这么残酷的一个状态下，共产党他居然在中国他要办什么奥运会？我想大家都应当有这个印象，在2008年，中国在申请这个北京第一次办夏季奥运会的时候，他们向全球、向全世界、向所有国际社会，他们做出的承诺是什么？他们的承诺是改善人权，是因为在中国举办了奥运，中国的人权从此就大大改善，中国社会的民主进步就会像其他的这个民主发达国家一样，走向民主正常的阶梯。所以说，全球的正义人士和很多善良的这些民主国家、这些领导人们，包括所有全球爱好和平的人，都听信了中共的这个鬼话，就是被中共欺骗。相信他们举办了奥运会以后，中国的人权就改善了。但是我们都看到了，北京奥运会是2008年举办的，到今天2022年又要举办冬奥会，已经过去了14年。那么这14年里面，你们说中国的人权改善了吗？我们可以看到历历在目的无数的实例，我不一一去列举，我们就以我们今天所纪念、所悼念的张青女士，我们就可以看到中共的人权迫害，他们到了什么令人发指的地步。张青在自己命悬一线，在自己生命的最后阶段，希望自己的丈夫郭飞雄能够到美国来见他最后一面，而中共不但是冷酷地拒绝了张青女士和郭飞雄这种夫妻相见最后一面的这个机会，而且是在张青女士她本人已经离世的情况下，又野蛮地抓捕了郭飞雄。那么这种国家，你还能就是支持他们继续去举办奥运会吗？美国和所有的五眼联盟国家，包括英国、加拿大、澳大利亚、新西兰，加上日本、加上丹麦、加上瑞典，已经有大量的国家政治抵制了北京奥运会，就是北京这次冬奥会。但是我觉得这是远远不够的，对中共这个政权不是抵制的问题，是消灭的问题。只有铲除了中共，全世界才能走入我们一个平安、自由、正义的社会。感谢大家。
Thank you. Next up, we have Zerkshan Bilash, who is a Kazakh human rights activist, founder and director of Atadirt, and a man who has like 500 million followers on his YouTube.
Hello. I am the member of one nation which ignored by whole world. 我是一个被世界遗忘的一个不幸的民族的一个成员。I born in Xinjiang, China, and while I'm 25 years old, I immigrated from Xinjiang to Kazakhstan and get Kazakhstan citizenship. 我出生在中国新疆，然后25岁的时候，我移民哈萨克斯坦，加入了哈萨克斯坦国籍。Everything is okay until 2016 and 2017. The Chinese Communist Party began to arrest around 500,000 and 700,000 innocent Kazakh nomadic people. 2017年之前，一切都是很好的。我从不参与政治的，我只不过是一个普普通通的商人而已。2016年和2017年之后，中国共产党在新疆抓捕了将近50万到70万的无辜的游牧民族哈萨克人。The arresting Kazakhs, there are a lot of reasons, and the former detainees, the detainees which rescued by my team, Atadirt Kazakh Human Rights, Besidan Almaty, Kazakhstan, they exposed the truth inside the Chinese concentration camps. And they said there are 72 crimes against innocent Kazakh people and the Uyghur people. And they first arrest people, and after that they said, you chose 2 or 3 kinds of crime for yourself. The first arresting, after that the sentencing. And all these things, the whole world know one fact that the Kazakhs who born in China and immigrated to Kazakhstan, like me, they are around 500,000 in Kazakhstan. And all these Kazakhs, around 500,000 Kazakhs, all of them has family members, loved ones in Xinjiang, China, arrested by Chinese Communist Party. And this 500,000 immigrated Kazakhs from Xinjiang helped the whole world to understanding what happened in Xinjiang really. And in 2017, I founded a Kazakh human rights organization called the Atajurt. Atajurt means is the homeland, the father's homeland. And we began to collect facts about concentration camps. And after then, I found that it is not only so-called re-education camps, it is genocide. And in 2017, I first called it is genocide against Kazakhs, Uyghurs, Kyrgyz, and the other ethnic minorities in Xinjiang. And we collected around 30,000 video testimonies. And all these women who lost their husbands, all the children who lost their parents. And they cried and they told where, when, why Chinese Communist Party arrested their loved ones. And we began to show the facts, the concentration camps in Xinjiang exist. And the Chinese government first, they never confirmed it, but after that they have to confirm that they are called it re-education camps and some education centers. And we rescued tens of thousands of Kazakhs from Xinjiang re-education camps, and also hundreds of Uyghurs and thousands of Kyrgyz people. And that's give us a second chance to expose the Chinese Communist Party's crime against humanity. And these people who rescued by my team, Atajurt Kazakh Human Rights, they told the truth. They told the very bad history inside the camps. The Chinese Communist Party, how tortured them, what kind of judgment for them, everything they told the world. Everybody maybe know one of the lady who first exposed the Chinese Communist Party's crime inside the camps. For example, the gang rape and the sex slave inside the camp. And this lady, Tursunay Ziaudin, we rescued her 2 times. First, she is Uyghur and her husband is Kazakh, and a Kazakh who get Kazakhstan citizenship immigrated from Xinjiang to Kazakhstan. And we rescued Tursunay Ziaudin. And she is the first Uyghur woman who rescued by our team, and the Chinese government have to release her because her husband visited us, recorded a lot of video testimonies, and we published it and we translated it to a lot of Western languages, and we published it. And because of the pressure, Chinese government have to release this lady, and we rescued her second times, and the Kazakhstan government went to deport her to China again because of Chinese pressure to Kazakhstan dictatorship regime. And next time we rescued her from Kazakhstan, I teach her to require refugee status from Kazakhstan government, and the Kazakhstan government no way to give her to any opportunity to give her refugee status and let her away. First let her go to Turkey, and the second time to America. And we, the small group called Atajurt Kazakh Human Rights, we are the first team in the world who collecting 30,000 video testimonies. And we are the first team exposing the Chinese re-education camps. And we have tens of thousands of video testimonies. Until now, we didn't translate it to English because we haven't enough resource. And now Chinese government also making anti-humanity actions in my country, Kazakhstan. You know, at the beginning of January, Kazakhstan happened a big rally, a big demonstration against Kazakhstan dictator regime. And now, after the failed demonstration, Kazakhstan dictator government began to mass arrest in Kazakhstan. They began to arresting innocent Kazakh young people. And the Chinese company, Huawei, and the Chinese company, High Vision, now helping Kazakhstan national security, that kind of high technology face recognition to arresting more and more people. And everything shows Chinese Communist Party is the common enemy of whole human being. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Lama Guzan, who is the Vice President of the Sino-Tibet Friendship Group.
Thank you very much to give me this important opportunity to speak here. Today is very cold, but everybody stand here against the Chinese government. Especially the CCP is the biggest criminal party in history. Also, I think Chinese Communist Party is the biggest terrorist group in the whole world. Why I say that? They kill every single second, like Zhang Nyushu. For example, in my country, in Tibet, Chinese government came there, they killed 1.2 million Tibet people already. Recent 2 years, Chinese CCP Ras killed 5.6 million people until yesterday. Only yesterday, one day, they killed 11,000 people in the whole world. So, we continue to keep our power. Lordly speak, need to 推翻这个世界上最大的恐怖主义组织啊！如果不推翻这个组织，那我们不用说在中国，全世界都没有永远的和平，因为我们一定要站出来啊，推翻这个世界上最大的这个暴政，尤其是这个习近平当了这个总书记以后啊，在西藏每天都发生这个很大的事情，为什么呢？我们西藏人不能说这个西藏话，特别在那个 elementary school closed, 80% Tibetan student sent to Chinese boarding school. That means they kill Tibetan cultures. Also, Tibetan people cannot pray Dalai Lama. The 14th Dalai Lama is the most peaceful person of all, but Tibetan people cannot pray for him. There is no religion freedom. So, all the nation together, we need to 推翻这个世界上最大的这个恐怖主义组织啊！谢谢大家。
老梗。
Well, thank you. Up next, we have a very special guest. We have Congressman Chris Smith here. a U.S. representative from New Jersey who is a longtime friend of the Chinese people and for all those that are fighting for democracy and rule of law in China. He is a senior member on the Foreign Affairs Committee of the House, is a ranking member of the Congressional Executive Commission on China. Chris Smith, everybody.
Thank you so very much, and this is an extremely important gathering. And I'm so glad so many people are here. I'm standing with so many heroes who have stood up for human rights and democracy in China. So I want to thank them for their leadership. Chen Guangzhen, who is an incredible hero who has suffered so much. And so thank you, and his wife, who have been just a great voice of reason. And unfortunately not reciprocated by the people behind us in the embassy. You know, we are raised, and Bob Fu, he can't be with us today because he is ill, but you know, Bob Fu has led the effort on religious freedom for decades. Obviously he was incarcerated after Tiananmen Square, and Bob is, you know, I've gone to China, now I'm barred from going to China now, they won't give me a visa, but Bob Fu has spoken out for all faiths, but including the Christians who have been repressed, and increasingly, whether it be the underground church or even the patriotic church, the Free Self movement, all of the Christians are under the boot of Xi Jinping, who is trying to crush all faith, especially now with the genocide as we're seeing with the Uyghurs. You know, we are raising our voices in protest and prayer today outside the embassy of the People's Republic of China. There's an irony in all of this, as we are representing, those who are here, we're representing the people, speaking for those in China who are voiceless. We are standing with the oppressed and not with the oppressor, which is represented by the people who are working in that building. Of course, the oppressor in chief is Xi Jinping, who has unfortunately unleashed tyranny as we have not seen since Mao Zedong on his own people. Today we will hear the voices of the voiceless, the voices on behalf of Guo Feixiong, a courageous lawyer who has been imprisoned by the Chinese communists and who was detained, who was denied a humanitarian request to allow him to visit his wife, Jiang Jing, to bid her farewell as she was dying of cancer. There was not even a scintilla of humanitarianism in the government to allow that visit. Voices are also raised on behalf of victims like Muriel Turson, who had a 2018 congressional hearing that I co-chaired with Marco Rubio. We were both chairmen of the China Commission. She recounted her ordeal of torture, sexual abuse, and detention in one of China's mass internment camps in Xinjiang. She broke down weeping, telling us that she pleaded with God to end her life. The Chinese jailers restrained her to a table, increased the electrical currents that were coursing through her body, and mocked her belief. When she asked the torturer, "Why are you doing this?" he said, "Because you're a Uyghur." Just because of that, this man was torturing this woman. Today our voices are also raised in defense of those who are seeking freedom in Hong Kong. You know, as many of you know, I was the prime sponsor of the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, introduced it in 2014. Finally, it got passed. Marco Rubio's also got passed. It is signed into law. But frankly, it was too late. Xi Jinping was already getting rid of the basic law and the UK Sino Agreement, which guaranteed fundamental freedoms and human rights to the people of Hong Kong. We're also here to protest the Genocide Olympics, which will begin next week. And I believe that the Olympics now have been tarnished, trashed, and torn. These are Xi Jinping's Genocide Olympics, held in a nation that places its own people in concentration camps, forcing ethnic Uyghurs, Kazakhs, and Kazakh to go into labor camps. The definition of genocide is being met in every single category by Xi Jinping's monstrous imposition of persecution on the people in Xinjiang. Every single one, including forced abortion, the concentration camps, and of course trying to get people or to put them and their children, separate the children from their families and indoctrinate them in a way that Xi Jinping wants them to be, away from their ethnicity and away from their hallowed belief and their Muslim ideals. Fortunately, Congress has passed the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. I was the principal Republican co-sponsor of that bill, and that will make a difference if it's effectively implemented by the Biden administration. Now the burden of proof shifts to those importing goods from China, from the sneakers to solar panels, to prove that they were not made in Gulag Labor. But we must also call out today, and we are, those who profit from the genocide games that will be held in Beijing. We call out sponsors like Coca-Cola, which first use signals when it comes to protesting common sense laws designed to curb voter fraud in Georgia, but then turns a blind eye to the harvesting of organs of Uyghurs and Falun Gong practitioners. We also call out NBC, which will broadcast the genocide games but refuses to say whether it will cover those athletes who raise their voices to protest the vile human rights abuses of Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party. We call out the IOC. You know, back in 2018, Marco Rubio and I sent a letter to the IOC and said, please move the games. They're committing genocide. And Xi Jinping, like no other, is committing human rights abuses across the board. I was in China in the early 1990s when Wei Jingsheng was allowed out of prison because they thought by letting this tremendous human rights defender out, they would get Olympics 2000. They didn't get it. They rearrested him and then tortured him almost to death. And Wei, of course, is a great hero today and is speaking out over and over about this Olympics. In 2008, Frank Wolf and I went to China and we protested the fact that the dissidents were being rounded out before that Olympics, rounded up by the Chinese secret police and interrogated so that they would have no contact whatsoever with journalists and with athletes. And we said to the IOC, they will do it again, and they'll do it again on steroids, because this is a harsh and cruel dictatorship that is crushing its own people, and it's doing it each and every day. We also call out today the corporate America, so much of it, like billionaire co-owner of the Golden State Warriors, who has said, Cavalieri, I watched that tape 3 times. I couldn't believe he would say what he said. No one cares. Well, we care. The American people care. And our friends across the planet who believe in human rights do care. So I ask you all today to redouble our efforts. I hope that people will boycott watching the Olympics. I like the Olympics. They should be held somewhere else. And we have argued for that for years. Thank you for being here today. And again, the people who work there and who work in the Chinese Communist Party are doing the most cruelest things to people who just want freedom and democracy. So thank you for your witness today.
All right, thank you, Congressman Smith. I believe that we're going to take a photo with the Congressman. So if you would like to come up here and be included in the photo, please pick up one of the posters as you do.
Everybody, please.
Congressman Smith, if you'd like to come up here in front.
风 ，OK。
瑶瑶，最后把那个照片发给我们就行了，好吧？感谢。谢谢。
My fingers turned off. There's only one more protest in that place anyway. You're right that we should print off some material. I would first. Yeah, okay. Let's. I have one choice, one chance of and I believe we could have some. This is good. Oh, you want like a board? Yes. Yeah, that'd be nice. Oh, didn't we jack some posters from we saw the we can use those. Yeah. Did she take them all? Yes. Yeah. That's also
All right, we're going to continue on with our speakers. Next up, we have Bai Tianming, who is the Vice President of the Federation for Democratic China, USA. A little bit right here.
There we go. No, I think it's
他是假的，我们要弄个真的。就是的，我们就是要花很多画解决方案。
最近可能在做视频。
我一直不上来。
今年那个跟老白他们回纽约，我在城市处这里跟他们。
你开菜馆的是？
对，私生开菜馆。
因为你们
他给人签名。完了，给他准备再去这个大使馆报告。你开车过来了？对。
啊，等我麻烦了，这我等一下发言了，中国人呢，我不发言。 你这个发给我，发给我。
看到这个活动，我们现在在做直播嘛？对。Okay. Yes, of course. Okay. Once more. Okay, great.
We have filed obituaries and
just keep it ready. Whoever, you never know.
给大家看看都是谁在参加。哇，老白。
So we all assume,
对。有管直播了，这是。
吴总过来，我好像是什么？也有人的心理
各位来宾，大家好。独立作家、人权捍卫者郭飞雄的太太张青女士因患癌症医治无效，1月10日离开了她深爱的丈夫和2个子女。多年来，她因为郭飞雄被中共国保骚扰监控，反复的坐牢而担惊受怕，受尽了煎熬折磨。他后来带着2个孩子来到美国，在异国他乡独自挑起抚养孩子的重担，自身还要打拼。他的身体终于被压垮了。他和郭飞雄分离10多年，到死都未能见上最后一面，人生之痛莫不如此。去年，郭飞雄一直想来美国探望病重的妻子，但被中共阻挡。在去年12月张青病危之际，郭飞雄试图再次扑美时被中共抓捕。中共不但没有对这个中国家庭有丝毫的恻隐之心，在张青弥留之前，还对这个他被迫害的妻离子散的家庭狠狠地捅上了一刀。张青死不瞑目，多少人间的悲剧是中共制造，多少家庭因为中共的迫害骨肉分离，家破人亡。中共更无此事。张青刚刚去世才2天，事故未寒，中共在1月12日竟然以煽动颠覆国家政权罪对郭飞雄签发逮捕令。 毫无人性，丧尽天良，在世界找不到比中共更恶毒者。中共之邪恶，罄竹难书，人神共愤。中共一天不亡，都不知还有多少骨肉分离、家破人亡的人间悲剧发生。中共一天不亡，中国人仍像韭菜那样任其宰割，被其奴役，受尽谎言洗脑，只能忍气吞声，苟且偷生度日，更没有自由可言。中共一天不亡，这个幽灵还继续在地球上空游荡，带来恐怖、威胁、病毒，世界永无宁乐。中共一天不亡，中共就会像无孔不入、无处不在的病毒那样毒害全世界，带来无休无止的生灵涂灰、天灾人祸、白骨庐山。在这次中共病毒疫情中，全世界每个人都看到了，中共谎言、隐瞒、甩锅，像毒蛇般的狡猾。为了他自身的存在和利益，他是不管人民死活的。他要把人都当作他的陪葬品，跟他一起进坟墓。他本身就是最毒的病毒。中共从来都行凶指示，只要被抓住就赖账，甚至倒打一耙，企图赖掉新冠病毒的病毒来源与武汉。就中共本身就是例证，中共的存在本身就是不断的向世界输出谎言、暴力、威胁、恐怖，这是比新冠病毒更毒的病毒。中共就是毁灭世界的病毒的来源，所以全世界的人民必须与中共势不两立，与他有血海深仇。中共是迫害、屠杀中国人民的罪魁祸首，是毁灭世界的魔鬼幽灵，是吞噬全世界人民的最毒的病毒。因为中共病毒肆虐狂啸，人类已经到了千钧一发、非常危急的时刻。中共病毒至今已造成全球3亿5635万人确诊，562万人死亡，而且还不知有多少人生命惊险一线，危在旦夕。所以我们要把中共的画皮扒下来，让所有中国人，让全世界人看清他是什么货色。我们要抵制他、声讨他、制裁他、打击他、消灭他，绝不能让中共病毒继续毒害世界。这不是在搞政治，这不是政治斗争，这是人类的自我拯救，否则人类别无出路。让我们高喊！今天我带着中共棺材来了，也配上了哀乐，让我们高喊：打倒中国共产党！
打倒
消灭中国共产党！共产党滚出中国！共产党滚出美国！共产党滚出联合国！共产党滚进坟墓！谢谢大家。
Next up, we have Elmer Gong Nguyen, who is a Hong Kong businessman and entrepreneur.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are facing a kind of a mausoleum. This is a mausoleum. This is the flag of the murderer. And this is another crime they have committed. There's no doubt about it. And I came here 1.5 years ago and claiming this is the criminal organization. And this is the symbol. Look at that. When have you seen a building like such? It's really a graveyard. It's made out of a tombstone. That's what we're facing right now. And I've heard a lot of speeches, and here we have people talking all the time, maybe spending so much time describing their crimes. Now the problem is, what is the solution? What is the solution? Are we going to come back here year after year, day after day, protesting? I'm going to London and we're going to have another protest on Genocide Olympics. But is that the solution? Instead of spending so much time criticizing, which we know is already a fact, there's no need to repeat time after time. We need to find a solution. So hopefully we have a new Congress coming next year. We want to make sure something is done. We want to break off the relationship, take them out. At least United States should not be dealing with such a criminal organization. All right, we are getting hurt. This country is getting hurt. Pretty soon we'll have 800,000 people died of the COVID. And still, there are still people who want to do business with them. Look at the part of the administration at the White House. They want to do business. All right, it's unbelievable. The whole Wall Street is still lending them money. And we need to break off from them. Isolation, all right, decouple. And we should leave them alone. No more chips, no more software, no more operating system, no more energy. They have to survive on their own. Without United States, they cannot survive for more than 2 years. So I'm talking about talk less and do more. We need to lobby. Starting from end of this year when they have the new Congress, we need to lobby for them to have a total decouple with China, with these murderers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elmer. Next, we have a longtime friend who has housed many a Chinese dissident and human rights lawyer, Anna Wong.
女士们、先生们，大家好！今天有机会站到这个特殊的地方，参加这样的集会，让我感慨万千。想起来我们在中国大陆，我们那么多的朋友，那么多的亲人，那么多的中国的老百姓，过着黑暗的生活。尤其是今年，那么在现在奥运会即将开始的时候。让我感觉到，我们每一个人身上都有责任和义务，能够尽快的结束中共统治。100年以前，中国共产党成立的时候，它带给中国人民的灾难和痛苦就开始了。回顾这100年以来，中国人民遭受的痛苦举世无双。那么，在中共在2008年成立，他第一次开奥运会的时候，那么在北京全程军管。就我本人来讲，我经历了2008年在北京的奥运会，那么看着它的开幕式那么的绚丽，那么多光彩，实际上整个城市都被军管，极大的影响了人民的生活。北京开奥运，首先是对中国人民生存权利的一种侵犯。那么，其次在此特别想提醒各位，就是中共的欺骗和它的渗透和它的宣传。我希望越来越多的人能够认识中共的真实面目。中共带给中国人民的就是痛苦，就是灾难，就是死亡。所以有这样的机会能够站到这儿，让我尤其感觉到我们有责任和义务结束中共。只有结束中国共产党，中国人民和中华民族才有希望。大家一起努力，谢谢。
谢谢。
Well, I didn't plan to speak, but since I'm here, I want to tell you a little bit about the story of Guo Feixiong and Zhang Qi. Guo Feixiong is one of the pioneers of China's rights defense movement. In 2005 and 2006, he started he helped the Taishichun village in Guangdong to oust their corrupt village officials and hold their own elections. For that, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison, and he was badly tortured, mistreated, and suffered just the unspeakable pains and inhuman treatment. He was released in 2011 and was out for barely 2 years. In August of 2013, he was arrested again for inciting subversion. He was sentenced to 6 years and got out in 2019. So in other words, he spent the last 15 years, he spent 11 years of the last 15 years in jail. Mr. Guo Feixiong, that's what we're talking about. Here is Zhang Qi, his wife. His wife, while she was in Guangzhou, that's where they lived, she visited him in prison, and until the school told her that her children cannot go to school anymore. The older one was 12 years old, around the age, and the younger one was 6 or 7-ish. So she had to leave China. With the help of China Aid, she fled China and arrived in Midland, Texas. So she raised her 2 children in America without Guo Feixiong, because most of the time he was in prison. But since 2019, he was a free citizen. And when Zhang Qi was diagnosed with colon cancer in early 2021, Guo Feixiong was dying to come here to finally see his wife and children after 15 years apart. Because even though Zhang Qi fled in 2009, remember, he's been in jail since 2006. So, but the Chinese government, this evil regime, this heartless, cold-blood regime, prevented Guo Feixiong from visiting his wife and the 2 children for almost the entire year. And meanwhile, Zhang Qi got treatment, got a little bit better, was actually exercising, but last October or November, her cancer came back. And Guo Feixiong was still prevented from visiting her and the 2 children. Zhang Qing's daughter, after her passing recently, her daughter told Radio Free Asia, the person my mother wanted to see, the person my mother wanted to see the most is my dad. So she didn't get to see her husband. The children didn't get to see their father. She passed away this January 10th. So I just want to relate this personal story to all of you, so to give you a sense how evil this regime is, and think about what they're doing to the Tibetan people, to the Uyghurs, to to the Chinese people, and I mean to Chen Guangcheng and the regime, right? We don't have a choice. The CCP must go, must be swept into the trash can of the history. I want that day, I hope that day to come sooner than later, but until then, we are going to work tirelessly, every day, every hour, contributing to this ultimate cause with whatever we can do, whatever talent we have. Let the world know. Let everyone know what this regime is all about, what kind of a threat it poses onto the entire world, the entire humanity. I don't want my children to live in the world with the CCP dominating economy, trade, international relations, even though my children live in the United States. I want Americans to wake up. They shouldn't think this threat is far away from them. It is not. It is at their doorstep. So friends, let's work together. Let's work tirelessly until with the Chinese people, we're working with the Chinese people, overthrow this evil CCP government in China.
Next up, we have John.
曹老师。好，哎，你好，小 baby。
Thank you, Logan. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John. Today, we come here to memorize Zhang Qing. Yet, we not only memorize Zhang Qing, but memorize who was persecuted to death by the Communist Party of China. Since the year 1949, at least more than 100 million Chinese people were killed and persecuted to death by CCP. Today, we call to free Mr. Guo Feixiong, but not only to free Mr. Guo Feixiong, it's also our duty to call to free all the people to fight against the Communist Party of China, to fight for the freedom of the Chinese people. John 8:32 said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." John 14:6, Jesus said to them, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." So people here in the United States, they believe in God. They know the freedom. Every U.S. coin, there's a word, liberty, means freedom. Every U.S. note, there's a sentence, a phrase, "In God we trust." But in Communist Party of China, you know, the Communist Party, they don't believe in God. Thus, they have no idea about freedom. Still, they don't allow we, the Chinese people, know the freedom, know the word of freedom. Today, we come here to call for free Guo Feixiong, to free past Wang Yi, to free past Zhang Cao, to free lawyer Yuan Sheng, to free lawyer Wang Yu, to free Mr. Newton Yu, to free His Holiness, the real Panchen Lama, Gensen Church Lima, and to free Eliham, Tohati, and to free Tibet, to free Uyghurs, that is to say, to free East Turkestan, to free Kazakhstan, to free the people of mainland China, to free lawyer He Junren, the hunters, to free Mr. Huang Zifeng, to free Macau, to free Tibetans, to free Uyghurs, to free North Korea, and also to free West Korea. It means mainland China. To free Myanmar, to free Afghanistan, to free Turkestan, to free Kazakhstan, to free Russia, to free the people all over the world who are not free. Today, we start the Free China movement. Please join us to free China, to free the whole world. Thank you.
Reverend Church is going to say a few more words.
I was requested to make an announcement. The National Clergy Council endorses the Free China movement. And what's the Free China movement? Well, very quickly, it is an attempt to answer the problem. When this regime falls, when that flag is taken down and a new flag of liberty for China is put up, or a variation thereof, when the communist regime is gone, what next? Will you have a vacuum like the French Revolution? Or will you have the American Revolution, counter-revolution? That's the big question. And the Free China movement, its vision is when the regime falls, and it will, and a vacuum, a political vacuum is there in China, the Free China movement proposes a constitutional republic and a civil government ready to be inserted into China, which means that there's quite a bit of preparation for the new time coming. And Professor John Churchill, that's his Americanized name, he's a political scientist. He has fled the communist regime, but he has a vision along with others for this Free China movement. And if it seems too ambitious, I already help speak on behalf of Christians and Muslims with the Free Iran movement. For a number of years, they've had me speak at White House rallies and other places. And the Free Iran movement has a civil government to replace the Iranian regime when it falls. At least that's their hope. and that's their dream. Well, we need to dream big. This gentleman here talked about the importance of solutions, and he's absolutely right. The first step is to do exactly what he said, to put the economic, political pressure on China. And then Jesus Christ is going to bless that. The Chinese government's going to fall, but there's no guarantee there'll be better freedom. If it's like the French Revolution, you'll end up with more blood and new tyrants. So the Free China movement, styled on the American experience of protecting God-given rights, the Free China movement hopes to fill that vacuum and to be the second part of the solution. And so we pray for your blessings on it, for the work of John Churchill and others, for people to help support it. It's just starting, just the first spark, and now we need a fire. Fire for liberty, a fire for free China. And let's pray indeed and hope that the Lord Jesus Christ, the ascended King, will bless it, and that all people be free in China, Christians and Muslims and others as well. And so I do want to again say that the National Clergy Council endorses the Free China movement. Thank you.
Last but not least, our last speaker today is Michael Horowitz, who is our newest member of Prisoner of Conscience and also a former Reagan administrative official.
Yes, you will be pleased to know that I am the last speaker. It's a very cold day. I've come, and I should be the last speaker, because I'm not going to talk about the freedom and the persecution, the freedom that's needed and the persecution taking place by China. All the other speakers have made that so powerfully. I've been in tears at some of the speeches that have been made today. I am here to thank you who have come here. I don't think you understand how powerful you are. I went to work for Ronald Reagan in 1980. At that time, the Russians seemed like they were 10 feet tall, and America was just declining. Reagan had the faith that the desire for freedom was powerful. He understood that the Soviet Union seemed like a big oak tree, powerful and strong and big. But if you've ever seen when there's a windstorm, the oak trees are the first ones to fall. And if you look at the roots of those trees, it's like shoelaces. He understood that the dictatorships of the world can be beaten and will be beaten. And why am I thanking you? I'm thanking you for the sake of my grandchildren, because the people who are here on this cold day, when nobody seems to be listening to you, are the people who will make freedom. And let me tell you the story of how history takes place. People think that in order to make progress, you make a little bit progress today, a little bit more tomorrow, a little bit more the next day until you succeed. That's not how history is made. I remember people protesting against the Soviet Union, and it would be like today, it'd be a cold day, and nobody would be listening. And here you are protesting the Genocide Olympics, and they're going to take place. You're not going to stop it. And nobody will seem to be listening to what you say. Not to your speeches, not to your stories, not to your prayers. Flickering, and nobody is listening. And then there's an even worse day the next day, and the next, and the next. But it is your courage to keep the flame of hope going. And then, overnight, it will seem what was impossible suddenly becomes inevitable. That is why I am absolutely confident in the collapse of the CCP. And when it happens, it will mean a life of possibility for my grandchildren, so that China and the United States will be competing to see who builds better television sets and cars. There won't be rivers of blood, because this evil regime will fall just the way the Soviet Union did, when everybody thought the Soviet Union was going to take over the world. And when it happens, let me say it again, you are the ones who kept that little teeny flame going, who came out on cold days like today, and will come out next week on another cold day, and nobody will seem to be listening. But if one understands history, one understands that you were the ones who provided and made possible that day when overnight the collapse takes place. The story of the 21st century is going to be a story of whether China becomes free. If China remains a dictatorship, it could be the 21st century, could be more bloody than the 20th century. So you are rescuing my grandchildren, and I am so grateful to each and every one of you. Never lose hope. You are the people who are making history. You are the people, by your courage, when nobody seems to be listening, who will be bringing down this regime and bringing freedom to a 21st century. So thank you again. Have just a hot cup of tea, and know that you are making history, that you are heroes. I think of you as heroes. I know you are heroes, and I thank you for today and for everything you've done.
All right, everyone, that concludes our protest. On behalf of China Aid, thank you so much for bearing the cold and coming out. It's always a good sign when the embassy turns on their music, so you know we kind of annoyed them. So please, on your way out, please take some coffee. You're welcome to take any of the signs as well, too. I know there's some big protests coming up. Thank you, everyone.